Hey everybody, this is just hopefully a short video, just trying to get everybody up to speed for assignment number 3, because we're basically taking the skills and knowledge from assignment 2 and applying it here. So if we didn't get that far, then we really need to get up to speed. So here we have a couple scripts. This is the starter code from the previous assignment. We're either going to want to start here, or if you finish the assignment, go ahead and start from your finished code, because that's probably a little further along. But the point of this assignment is really to code the client. And then here we have the server script, which is basically you're not going to need to edit this. This is pretty much good to go. The one thing you'll note though is that you need to have the same port number on both. So here I just picked 12,000. That's a good number because you want something higher in the thousands, because you don't want to run into the lower number like default ports and stuff. You just want to make sure that you pick a port that is not being used. So pick a high number. The other thing that you want to note is, first, on the server side, don't worry about the IP. Some of you might be tempted to change it because that's what we did in the last one. But if you leave it blank, that just allows it to listen on all interfaces, which is going to be useful for both running on our local machine and running in Mininet. Now, we probably want to do both. Running on our local machine and running in Mininet. We have to run it in Mininet eventually, but we want to edit it here. We want to use, I've got VS Code up. You could, be editing in any editor you want, but and then testing it. If you put it into Mininet and then it's broken and you're editing it in there and testing it in there, it's a lot more difficult. So I'm going to basically show you how to run it on the local machine so that you can edit it and kind of quickly go through these things while you're testing it. So first thing you'll need to do is you'll need to tell the client to be sending it to 127.0.0.1. That's the local host port. That means send it to ourselves. And since the server is just going to be listening on all interfaces, you're good to go. So from here, I'm actually going to run my finished code. I'm not going to show you that code, obviously. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're in the correct directory. Now I made, here's my home directory, CST311. That contains the files that I need. And I'm here in both terminals. Now we need two because we need to run the server in one and the client in the other. So let's do Python 3 UDP server and run that, because we always want to run the server first so that it's listening for when the client actually starts sending the messages. So Python 3 again for the client, and hit enter. So this is the output that you'll be getting. It's in the instructions. It'll just be some simple math. You might need to kind of read up on how to record when a message is being sent. But basically what we're doing is we're just simulating sort of the packet loss and stuff like that. And it's very similar to the last assignment, just with some extra stuff. But again, you don't have to touch the server code. This already has the sort of simulated packet loss with the random numbers. Don't worry about that. It's all about the client script here. So once you've got your script basically running, and I would suggest getting it all the way to this point, you're basically finished. Then you're going to want to put it in a Mininet. And just a note, you're also going to need to change this IP. Now, first, we'll start up the VM. So mine's already open. If you forgot, the password and username are just Mininet and Mininet. So anyways, we want to SSH into this, and I'll show you why. Because basically, you see when we're clicked in here and the mouse is just, it's non-existent. You're like, where is it? You can't scroll. You can't copy and paste. That's just a pain, right? The reason is because this is a server program. So it's literally meant to be run on a machine without a screen or keyboard or mouse, right? So it doesn't have mouse support. obviously it has to have keyboard support, but it's really meant to be SSH'd into. So even though we can see the screen here, we're really connecting to a little virtual or fake machine on the inside there. Now you're going to want to grab the IP. I already ran the command, but again, it's ifconfig. It'll be this second one down here, the inet address 192.168.12.14 for me. For you, it'll be probably a little bit different, but you're just going to take that, go back to your terminal. You're going to type, and this is for, I think, both Mac and Windows users now. I think they have support in their, I would try it in PowerShell, but either way, we're going to type SSH. We're going to give it the username, which is Mininet for everybody. And then we're going to give it that IP address, 192.168.128.14 for me. Again, yours will probably be different. And that's all we need there. Type in Mininet as the password again, because that's the Mininet password. And there we are. We're in. We're good to go. So we can just put that in the background. We don't have to think about it. Now we can copy and paste and scroll. It's all good. The other thing is the SSH command is actually really similar to Control-C to exit your program, by the way. It's really similar to the SCP copy command, which is basically going to work for Mac users and for Linux users. For Windows users, you're probably just going to want to download a program. I prefer WinSCP. I'll link that into the description. It's just a graphical version. It's actually going to make it easier once you get it going. But yeah, if you're a Linux or a Mac user, we're just going to use a command. It's really simple. But first, actually, I want to remind you a little bit about how Mininet runs and how we get the IPs for what we're running in there. So we started up with sudo mn. Now it adds these hosts, right? Adding hosts h1, h2. These are separate machines, basically. They're little mini virtual machines. They have their own IPs. You can run commands on each one of them individually. And basically how you do that is you type in the host name, so h1, which is what we're going to run our server on. So it's going to be the IP that we want to know to put in our client script, basically. So we say h1, and then we just give it the Linux command we want, ifconfig. We just used that one, right? There it is, 10.0.0.1. Now, if you haven't figured it out yet, the convention with Mininet and its IPs are basically, it's always 10.0.0, and then 1 if it's h1, 2 if it's h2, and so on. So that's kind of easy to remember. I suggest just running the server on h1 so that you can follow the actual instructions, the commands in there. That's how they're configured. So now that we have that, we're actually going to go, and I'm going to hide this real quick so that you don't see. This is the actual script I'm going to use. We want to change that to the IP address. I'm just doing that so I don't have to edit it later in Mininet. But yeah, now that it's edited, again, we want to make sure we're in the correct folder. We've got the files we want, and we're just going to type in SCP, and then we're going to list the files. So we can say UDP server, that's one file. We can add another file, client. We could keep going if we had more files. But the last thing we want to put in is just like the SSH. We want to put the user at 192.168.128.14 or whatever yours is. And then one last thing, colon, and we're going to give it the path. Print working directory. Now this is the path to the directory that you when you start Mininet, you're just here. You should just put it there. It's going to be the same for you, so you don't have to do the print working directory command or anything. Just /home/Mininet. Now we've got it, SCP, 1 file, 2 file, Mininet at IP address, and then location where we want the files to go. Again, Mininet, and there we go, 100% for both. That means it worked. And there they are. So now I'll just show you how to run them in Mininet. So again, if we want to run a script or even a command, which Python 3 is a command, then we're going to specify the host name, we're going to specify the command, and now we're going to specify the script again. So this time we want, again, UDP server. So UDP, pinger server starter.py. It's a long name, but also the last thing we need, ampersand. This is in the instructions. Just so you know what this is telling it to run in the background. We don't want to see the server output. In fact, there really isn't any output, but if we don't put the ampersand, it's going to freeze our terminal and we're only going to be seeing the server. We want to be able to run commands and run our client. So now it's running in the background. We want to take the other host and run the client server. So again, Python 3, UDP, what is it? Pinger client, I guess, .py. Yeah, that's it. And run. And there it is. And it's going. Got all the numbers worked. Everything's good. Okay, that's all the essential stuff. I'll just show you one last thing that I think is really important if you are going to be using this stuff later. I'm going to add this -x file here, -x argument. I'm going to run it, and I'll show you what that does. You're gonna need a program if you want to run this part. So really this is extra. This is what it does though. Xterm h1 h2. Boom. Xterm brings up these little windows that are basically the machines themselves. So if we run ifconfig, we're basically in the virtual machine 10.0.0.1. ifconfig over here. 10.0.0.2, we're in H2 there. So you see, this can be really useful when you're running scripts, when you have a server that you need to see output on. Like if you have some output over here on your server and then you got your client running and it's got its own output, you want two separate windows just like we had over here. So if you want to know how to do that, there's more to it than just adding the -x flag. You can just talk to me. It's easy. You just need to download the right program for your computer and your architecture. So if you want to do that, let me know. Otherwise, you should be good to go for this for this assignment. All right.